Hello, everybody. Welcome to the RSN wrap-up show on our Tier Bank Studios. Thank you for making us a part of your Friday night and staying up with us. I'm Jack Thiel. Alongside me, Doug Ashenbaugh, Justin Cole producing today's show. And boy, do we have a lot to wrap up. Sectional championships were tonight. We had 3 game night built by Vahan Tobel, including one which went into a thrilling overtime matchup. But with that being said, let's get started. We'll start with our first game night built by Vahan Tobel. Crown Point Bulldogs, they continue their dominant season. Their rivals, the Lake Central Indians, come in to the Dog Pound. And the Dog Pound, I mean, that's what they do. When teams go into the Dog Pound, they don't come out the same. And for Crown Point, they were leading 42-0 at halftime. Obviously, you get into that second half, the running clock happens, you take your starters out. Lake Central is able to put at least one touchdown on the board. But for Crown Point, it's been smooth sailing for this team. You know, the really only test that they really had this year was against Valpo. I believe it was 19-14 victory. They win. They play Penn next week. But going back to this matchup for Crown Point, it was interesting because the last time these two teams played, it was closer than the box score indicated. Yes, and if you remember, Xavier Williams, D1 commit running back, did not play in that game. He did play tonight. And Jay Simmons, who was doing color analysis for that game, just said he had nowhere to go. For these Crown Point Bulldogs, they only gave up 9 rushing yards on 23 attempts against the Bronchos last week. So this is a rush defense who has been very potent just because their pass defense has had their struggles, but the rush defense has been as solid as anything. I mean, you go back, they're only giving up 6.6 points per game, which is a school record. But for Crown Point, there's so many – you try to find different things to say about this team, but at the end of the day, they go into Friday night, they handle their business, and they prepare for next week. It's a recycle. It's how it happens every week.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, they're obviously a very tough team to play, and you're right. It was much closer. I remember I called that first game actually of Crown Point and Lake Central, and it was closer at half too as well. It was one of those calls where the Lake Central, we thought he got over the goal line, he didn't. It would have been a much closer game too as well. But then obviously Crown Point came out in the second half, did very well. Today they took care of business, obviously. You know, Lake Central probably did go in feeling very well. You get Xavier back, obviously. Yeah. You got some high hopes, but, you know, Crown Point obviously came ready to play tonight, especially that run defense like you talked about. We've been seeing it all year. They've been electric. They've been stopping the rush. They don't give up points neither, but it's hard to almost find a flaw in that offense, man. They know how to run very well with Ellison. The passing game is electric. It seems like they kind of score just at will, and that's what they did tonight. I mean, 42-0. At half in a sectional title game is very impressive.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people thought Lake Central might have a better chance than they did last time because you said they were more healthier than they were that previous matchup. Xavier Williams, who is arguably one of the best running backs in the area, came back. So you really thought Lake Central had a lot of momentum going into this game, also winning a shutout win against Portage, but that just wasn't the case. We did have some award winners. The Crowell Company's Lantern Man superhero of the game was Larry Ellison, the running back. He's just had one impressive season. He had over 100 yards and 4 total touchdowns in the first half. Once again, Larry Ellison, your Crowell Company's Lantern Man, superhero of the game. Your proud Union home play of the game presented by IKORCC. It's a 77-yard touchdown pass from Noah Ehrlich to Nick Solis. Once again, it's your proud Union home play of the game presented by IKORCC. And the Boilermaker Local 374 blue-collar player of the game is the Crown Point Bulldogs starting offensive line. They dominated the trenches en route to their first sectional title since 2018. And they'll look to continue that momentum against a Penn Kingsman team that defeated Warsaw 31-10. Now Penn goes into that matchup 10-1. We haven't really talked about much about Penn after that first week against Valpo where they defeated the Vikings. This is going to be a good matchup. I think that for Penn, this is as good as a team gets. You have Corey Newman, one of the best coaches as well in Indiana. Craig Mazzia, another great coach. It's at Penn, so Crown Point's going to go on the road. They haven't had to go on the road all playoffs just yet. We'll talk about that matchup in a little bit later, but another region matchup we had was Maryville at Morton. This was another good game. A lot of talent on both sides of the football, but the Pirates getting the best of the Governors 42-18 for Maryville. We've talked about how this is a team who, after that Crown Point loss, really got quiet and in a good way. They just played football. Yes, they didn't worry about the outside noise, the stats, or accolades. They just went out and played football. And we kind of said how going into that Crown Point game, maybe they were listening a little bit too much. Oh, Crown Point, Maryville, that rivalry, trying to beat the Bulldogs, this and that. But for Maryville, this is a team who is sneakily 9-2. You know, just think about it. Their only losses are to Crown Point, like we talked about, and a 2-point loss against Valpo a couple of weeks ago. Now the game's going to be at Maryville next week. They haven't lost a home game all year. The Pirates are just rolling, and you know we all thought it was going to be Valpo and Maryville. I think that was the matchup everybody envisioned. But this is a Pirates team playing some of their best football right now.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, that's the key, especially their defense, too, as well. And yeah, after that Crown Point loss, they were real quiet. And a lot of people there were some doubters almost like, hey, what happened to Maryville? Is Maryville going to fall off after this? And it was no. They were quiet. They got to work. And, I mean, they've been playing extremely well, especially the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
The offense has always been electric. I mean, they can score. Obviously, they showed it tonight, scoring 42 points, too, as well. But that defensive side of the ball, that's where it's key when it comes obviously down into the playoff games. Now you got a regional matchup against a very good offense at Valpo, right? And this is when you want your defense to be playing very well. But, I mean, that's going to be a dogfight. I know it was a very close game when they first played. We get a rematch very soon kind of right afterwards, too. And both these teams are rolling. But, yeah, Maryville right now is a scary team, I would say.
Yeah.
They're just playing ball at the right time and starting their peak at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. That defense led by Trey Stevens, Terrell Elmore, Jalen Ramsey. Those guys have been terrific for them. And we said they'll play our second game night built by Von Tobel winner, the Valpo Vikings. They defeated Michigan City 26-7. It was a lot closer. It was actually 14-7 earlier in the game. Now for the Vikings, they came off a scare last week, down 14-3 at halftime against the Chesterton Trojans. For the Michigan City, also came off a scare a little bit. Only won 6-5 against the Slicers last week. So both teams coming in trying to kind of look better than they did last week. But the Vikings, this is kind of the football they've been playing this year. Obviously, the injury to Davis, you've kind of had to refine what this offense can be. You know, Thomas Berta has been the guy in the backfield. He's done a very good job. Justin Clark's also done very good as the quarterback. He's been in this position before on that state championship run last year. For the Wolves, a lot of new things for them. First-year head coach Cody French, and they still had a lot of playmakers, but they're still trying to get used to the system. It's always hard with first-year head coaches getting acclimated to a new team. But for the Valpo Vikings, they do survive another week. And we talked about it, Maryville next week. But let's go back to Valpo, a team that, look, is it the prettiest football? No. Is it the way Crown Point wins or the way Maryville wins? No, absolutely not. But they are finding ways to win. And what's more crucial is they know how to win these playoff games. That's the most important part.
Well, yeah, exactly. Obviously, a ton of returners on that state run from last year. They've been in these situations before. They've been deep into the playoffs. They know how to pull these off. But Valpo's always been that kind of control the clock. There are some closer games, too, as well, that you see. And then you kind of see them start to pull away. They start, they beat up on teams a little bit where it's, hey, you get them down, you get them tired, and then you start slowly pulling away. That's Valpo Viking football. I mean, that's what they like to do. Obviously, they love to run the ball too as well, but they could score in the passing game. But that's Valpo's game, and that's going to be an interesting matchup like we were talking about with Maryville. But can they keep controlling the clock? Can they keep the ball out of the opposing offense's team? And that is key. I mean, Michigan City's offense is electric, too, as well. A lot of athletes in open field. They're able to score. So when you take that part of the game away, it's tough for teams against Valpo. And that's why they are so successful, because they put together drives, 7, 8, 9-minute drives. Valpo will sometimes. And that's defeating, man. I mean, that takes a lot out of your defense. And then now you're expecting your offense to go out, and the defense comes right back out. I mean, it's a, like you said, it's not a Crown Point win where it's score fast, score quick, score often. But we're going to control the game. We're going to run the game like how we want to. We're going to control the tempo, and that's what we saw tonight. Close, and then they pulled away when they needed to.
We did have some RSN award winners for that second game night built by Von Tobel, your Crowd Company's Lantern Man superhero of the game, Justin Clark. He had 3 touchdowns on the night, leading to that sectional title victory. Your proud Union home play of the game presented by IKORCC was Justin Clark's 4th quarter rushing touchdown. It was late in the game and really put Valpo ahead and helped them secure that victory. Your Boilermakers Local 374 blue collar player of the game was Tyler Verscher of Valparaiso. He was causing havoc all over the field for the Vikings, totaling 2 interceptions and a pass deflection. So you kind of mentioned it, playing that kind of football where they'll take some time off the clock. They are a very heavy running team. Justin Clark, look, he can throw the ball, but he's also very explosive with his legs. And the defense has just been so impressive, not just last year, but this year. But Valpo and Maryville will face off next week. We'll talk about that one in a bit. As New Prairie Cougars, they continue their season. They defeat the Culver Academy Eagles 43-14. This game, there's not many words to explain this except classic. So a third game night built by Von Tobel. Hanover Central Wildcats 11-0. West Lafayette Red Devils, they were 8-3. 42-41 overtime win for West Lafayette. Hanover Central's season is over, but this was just a terrific game. Myself and Doug had the call for it. And what started in a scoreless tie after the first quarter, then all of a sudden Hanover's offense came alive. They scored 28 points in the second quarter, including the final touchdown with 2 seconds to go. It was a Caden Verrett 10-yard pass and a couple blocks down the field. He was able to score, but a football game is 4 quarters long.
And this one 5.
Oh, this one 5, yeah. This one 5, and the Red Devils, look, we were questioning if they could do it, and they did it because they score a touchdown on the first drive, 28-14. Caden Verrett comes right out, 90-yard rushing touchdown with about 6 minutes to go, 35-14. The Red Devils were able to take it down the field at the end of the third quarter, score in the early fourth quarter. Then that's where things got interesting because Hanover Central on the next drive, they drove the ball down the field. A 4th and 5, it was field goal range. Brian Parker and his Wildcats decided to go for it. It was an incomplete pass from Matt Kuntz. It was low. Then on the next play, the Red Devils, they pull that rabbit out of the hat. They have their receiver, Benny Speaker, throwing to Cooper Kitchell about a 60-yard bomb, and that opened everything up. That led to the improbable comeback. You go late into the fourth quarter, about 20 seconds to go. Carson Kitchell, the quarterback, hits Benny Speaker in the back of the end zone and then finds Dawson Martin for the 2-point conversion to tie the game. We go to overtime. It was a Dawson Martin rushing touchdown. And then right away, Hanover Central scored. It was a Matt Kuntz rushing touchdown. Well, when you get in those those positions, you think about it. Do you want to keep the game going or do you want to end it right here? Mm-hmm. They said, let's end it right here. They go for 2. They ran the same exact play they scored on previously and were stopped. The Red Devil defense read it to perfection. Matt Kuntz had nowhere to go. The Red Devils completed the comeback, and just like that, West Lafayette won 42-41 in overtime. It's so unfortunate that we had to have a loss in this game because both teams played so well. Obviously, it was a tale of 2 halves. I mean, one half was Hanover, second half was West Lafayette, but this was just a game you talk about for a while. You had offensive plays. You had huge defensive plays. You had some plays where you're a little questionable about. It was one of those football games you always talk about. Everything a great football game has. But for the Red Devils, they come out as the victors. And overall, it's a tough pill to swallow for Hanover Central. I think you're going to go back on that 4th and 5. You kick the field goal. You're up 18 with 6 minutes to go. Yep. That late touchdown has no effect at all on the game. And Hanover Central would be probably playing Knox next week, but that's just not how it worked tonight. Yeah. It was West Lafayette Red Devils. It was a huge the whole offense, the Kitchell brothers. You had Speaker, you had Dawson, and the defense as well. We talked about how well Caden Verrett's played this year, averaging 9 yards per carry. Other than that 90-yard rushing touchdown, him and the offense couldn't really find anything going. Peter Matrone was huge. You had a bunch of other guys who were just making key plays. The linebackers especially were making open field tackles. Nevertheless, this was a great game. And for West Lafayette, I don't know how. I wonder how that locker room's got to be right now.
It's got to be rocking. I mean, and you, like you said, we finished 0-0 in the first quarter. Yeah. I would have put
83.
I would have put a lot of money on it. That whatever under would have been under.
83 total points after a scoreless first quarter.
I mean, that's wild. That shows though, like how explosive these offenses truly were and are. I should say. It took them a little bit to find out what those defenses were doing. Once they figured it out, they started to exploit. And like you said, though, it was more Hanover in the first half. West Lafayette made some very good adjustments in the second half on defense. And we were talking about that at halftime, too, as well, right? What does coach say to the kids? Hey, we can make some adjustments. Keep playing our game on offense. We come out victorious. And they did. But 83 points is just insane. I mean, it was a thriller. It was probably one of the best games I've called in quite some time.
It was such a great game.
And I think an instant classic for region football, obviously, with Hanover.
Absolutely.
Mean, it was a lot of explosive plays. Like you said, that one at the Barrett at the end of the first half.
Yeah.
On the very last second.
Caught it at about the 25-yard line.
And then finished it. I mean, there was so many good things. Like you said, it was unfortunate we had to have a loser in that game.
And you said it at halftime on our Host Connections halftime report at the game was what these teams need to do. I mean, Red Devils did exactly what you said. For Hanover Central, I mean, it's hard to judge it because they did keep their foot on the gas. They were aggressive in that game, but maybe too aggressive on that 4th and 5. You did have a place kicker who had over 54 extra points made, including tonight. And that field goal would have been probably about 3-4 yards longer than an extra point.
Yeah.
And obviously you get the first down. You probably waste about 2.5 more minutes. Very impossible to come back in that. But I think that a lot of people would say you kick the field goal, it's 18-point game. It's very hard to score 3 times in 6 minutes. When Hanover Central, I mean, they only went 3 and out twice, and that was in the first quarter. Other than that, they were able to get first downs there, back. But that's going to be the big question mark. Why did you not kick the field goal? 4th and 5, they're making an 18-point game. Obviously, it's so easy to analyze it now than back then because there's so many things going through your head as a head coach.
Absolutely.
You kick the field goal. Yeah, you're up 18, but like I said, you have an offense that's been able to move the ball down the field. You have a running back who averages 9 yards a carry. You get the first down. You take 3 minutes off the clock. I think they were going to be 10 yards away from a touchdown. So
yeah, I mean,
you think about it. You think about all that. It's so hard as a head coach, and I know people are going to criticize that decision. But at the end of the day, everything's happening in the blink of an eye. And it's hard with those decisions. You know, we're not football. We're not football.
Yeah, right.
We're not out there. We don't know what's going through his mind. Maybe there was something with the kicker. Maybe he just trusted his offense because he does call the offensive plays. So there's a lot of things that we don't know that go on those sidelines. So obviously it is a questionable call. But at the same time, you know, there might have been something we didn't know about. But nevertheless, West Lafayette, they won 42-41. Our crowd company's Lantern Man superhero of the game was Dawson Martin, the running back. He had multiple touchdowns, including the tying 2-point conversion catch and the go-ahead touchdown in overtime. The Boilermakers local 374 blue-collar player of the game, that was Caden Verrett of Hanover Central. He had 3 touchdowns on the night. Unfortunately, his season ends, and he had 33 total touchdowns, which is top 5 in the state of Indiana. And don't worry, Hanover Central, he will be back next year. He's only a junior. And then our proud Union home play the game presented by IKORCC. It was the touchdown that led to the tying 2-point conversion. Kitchell, the speaker, in the back of the end zone.
The toes touching.
I keep saying it. Little Jerry Rice out there looking like. But nevertheless, those are your award winners for Hanover Central at West Lafayette, and West Lafayette will play the Knox Redskins. They defeat John Glenn 60-37, so Knox's undefeated season continues. They are now 12-0. The Bremen Lions fall to the LaVille Lancers 28-14, and the North Judson Blue Jays defeat the Train Trojans 33-7. As we're ending our show, we're going to talk about 2 games that we're going to feature for next week. The first one, Crown Point and Penn. Penn's only really faced 2 region teams. They played Morton and they played Valpo. They won both of those games. For Crown Point, you know, they've really only played region teams this year. They haven't really gone out there and played some non-conference games like other schools. Now for Crown Point, they have been as dominant as you can ask for. But that's the same with Penn. I mean, their loss was to a very good team. They beat a very good Warsaw team by 21 tonight. You're going at Penn. Honestly, almost like a drive all the way out to South Bend. So about an hour and a half, hour 40 minutes for the Bulldogs. And it is their first game in quite a while, not at home. You know, they've played, I believe, the last 3 weeks because they did get that bye first round. You know, it's been about almost a month since they played on the road. And it's a different atmosphere from playing at the Dog Pound when you've got fireworks going, you got all your fans there, all the alumni, compared to a place like Penn who has rich football history. And it's honestly like Crown Point. It's a football program that has been successful over the years. It's a football program that has a great head coach right now at the helm. And this is going to be an exciting one. You've got a lot of great players on both sides of the football. What are you looking for in this matchup?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is the Crown Point offense. Obviously, it's probably going to be one of the best defenses they see all year, right? Can you continue your dominance on offense, right? With the run game, with the pass game, you got Noah Ehrlich at the realm. I mean, that kid's just remarkable. We've seen him all year. We've seen him in the past years, right? Can Penn control that? That's going to be, for them. And then that's the same with Crown Point, too, as well, as their rush defense is pretty well. But the pass defense has sometimes had some questionable moments. Can they slow down Penn, too, as well? It's similar we were talking about with Hanover and West Lafayette. Is at first it looked like a defensive game. Which defense is going to step up here, make a big play? I think that's what it's going to come down to with Crown Point and Penn, too, is which defense makes a big play. Who gets the crucial turnover? Or who causes, that fourth down stop and in their own territory? I think that's what it's going to come down to. But it is tough. Think about it. I mean, a month, You've been playing at home. Now you have an hour and along. You're going to go and jump a time zone, too, on top of it when you're traveling out there. I think it's close to it. But nonetheless, is that, that's tough to travel with that. But I can tell you one thing. I guarantee you that Crown Point Bulldog community is going to jam-pack those stands, too, as well. So they are going to have their crowd behind them. I think it's a heavyweight fight is what we're going to see. And
it is.
It's who's going to make that big play on defense is going to be the crucial moment, I think.
In one game, we don't have to go too far for. It's teams that are very familiar with one another. Maryville, Valpo, they've already faced off this year. Valpo got the best of them. That time was at Valpo, 26-24. Both teams come in 9-2. Both teams have a loss against Crown Point. This is a really – now, these teams, we all envisioned it. I think, going into the sectional bracket, looking at regionals, this was the most likely matchup.
Yeah.
And both of these teams have dominated throughout their competition. We talked about Maryville. They have a stout defense. Don't forget about the offense. The offense is good, but their defense has really taken over the conversation. For Valpo, we know they have a stout defense. I think the offense is the biggest question mark because – it has been one-dimensional for the past couple of weeks. It's been heavy run. The passing by Justin Clark has been there, here, and there. And you can make the case for Maryville. Dante Pope, he's not a prolific passer. He's a guy who can do it more with his legs. Yes. Nevertheless, you have two defenses who play really good football. You have two head coaches that are really good at their jobs. And you have two offenses that can really run the ball down a defense, but can make those passing plays when needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what it comes down to here is that Maryville's defense, can you stop those 7, 8, 9-minute drives from Valpo? Yeah. That's going to be key. Can you get those quick 3-and-outs from Valpo? If you can do that and you get your offense on the field a lot more than what Valpo has seen most of all year, you put yourself in a very good position to win that ball game. That's what it's going to come down to. Don't let them drive 6, 7, 8 minutes on you. Take up a quarter. I've seen them do that multiple times. Valpo, if you can prevent that from happening, get some quick possessions out there, you put yourself in a really good chance to win this game.
Yeah, those are going to be some good games. I want to give a big thank you to all our crews who covered our game night built by Von Tobel. For Michigan City at Valpo was Matt Sosler, Doug Nelson, Zach Miller, and Milton Johnson. At Crown Point and Lake Central was Michael Bradner, Jay Simmons, Nick Russ, and Scott Stessel. At Hanover Central at Westlaw, a big, big thank you to Mike DeWan and Zach Snelly for making that drive. It's not an easy drive, and they made it, and they are allowed all of us to view what was one of the best games of the year. So big thank you to them, and also Justin Cole here in our studio for helping us produce that game and also produce this show. Of course, a big thank you to Doug Ashenbaugh for being my host. Executive producer Chris Ramirez, our operations manager Rich Castillo, and a big thank you, and I hope he's listening. I know he's not, but I hope he watches back and listens. A big thank you to our buddy Skibbs.
Yeah, Skibbs came big.
Was so important tonight. We needed a piece of equipment at Hanover Central at West Lafayette. He's usually our scoreboard guy. Well, he shows up here, and about 6:30, he makes the drive all the way to West Lafayette and comes back in pretty good time and was able to deliver the equipment that helped us stream the game. So a big thank you, Skibbs. You do the scoreboard every week, but this time you came in clutch on the road and delivered that equipment. I know you're not listening right now, but like I said, if you're hopefully you're watching tomorrow, I gave you a shout out, and we do appreciate all that hard work. But that's going to do it here for the RSN wrap-up show in our Centier Bank Studios. We'll be back next Thursday night for Region Football Weekly, but this is the Region Sports Network, the only game in town.